Welcome to the Psych Ignition channel. When the storm approaches, most men beg for shelter. The Sigma male sharpens his blade. History remembers this pattern. In every downfall, from empires collapsing to economies imploding, it's never the loudest or the richest who endure. It's the man who adapts in silence, who disappears into the cracks while the noise devours the rest. The Sigma male isn't built for comfort. He's forged for chaos. While others cling desperately to normalcy, gripping it like a lifeline, he treats disruption as his natural habitat. That's why when crisis comes, he doesn't just survive. He evolves. He steps through the fire calmer, sharper, and almost amused that others thought the world was ending. This isn't some cliché tale of the lone wolf. It's a study of a man whose psychological wiring makes him untouchable when everything familiar burns. And tonight, we're diving into why the Sigma male doesn't merely withstand chaos, he thrives in it. While others pray for rescue, he builds his rebirth in silence. Let's begin. Number 1. They are self-amusement engines. When the world slows to silence, most men collapse. Strip away their routines, their noise, their distractions, and they crumble under the weight of their own emptiness. They've built entire identities around being busy, entertained, and validated. But the Sigma male? He carries his own world inside his mind. He is his own source of stimulation, an ecosystem of thoughts, projects, and curiosities. When the external world shuts down, he doesn't panic. He expands. While others scroll endlessly, drowning in boredom and fear, the Sigma is quietly dissecting ideas, learning obscure skills, or exploring creative depths no one else even notices. He doesn't seek applause for what he does. His satisfaction comes from mastery itself, from wrestling with ideas that challenge him, from refining himself when no one's watching. That's why, when crises lock others in cages of stillness, the Sigma treats that same stillness as open territory. He turns downtime into momentum, isolation into construction, silence into revelation. And here's the deeper truth, it's not just about productivity. It's psychological resilience. The Sigma doesn't need external noise to feel alive. His solitude is his sanctuary, not his sentence. While society trembles at the thought of being alone, the Sigma smiles quietly, knowing his greatest weapon is this. He can live entirely inside his own mind and still grow stronger. By the time the dust clears, while the rest are weaker, distracted, and drained, he's sharper, calmer, and already 5 steps ahead. In a world addicted to distraction, his ability to generate self-amusement isn't just a quirk. It's a survival mechanism. A sign that the Sigma doesn't need the world to entertain him. Because the real show is happening inside his mind. Number 2. They see crisis as rebalancing, not ruin. For most men, crisis feels like betrayal. It feels like the universe suddenly turning on them, ripping away the life they thought was secure. But the Sigma male doesn't see it that way. To him, collapse is not the end. It's a reset. He views every crisis as nature's correction, a rebalancing act that exposes everything fake, fragile, or overinflated. While others mourn what they've lost, the Sigma studies what's finally been revealed. He doesn't see destruction, he sees clarity. That's the difference between the herd and him. The herd clings to stability, even when it's slowly killing them. They fight to preserve jobs that drain their soul, relationships that suffocate their growth, and systems that pretend to keep them safe. But the Sigma never confuses stability with safety. He knows that most comfort is just a decorated cage. So when the bars break, he doesn't panic, he breathes. He studies the open space and walks into it with calm precision. Psychologically, this is what makes him nearly unbreakable. He doesn't derive identity from the illusion of control. He knows life has always been temporary, unstable, and unpredictable, and that truth doesn't scare him, it energizes him. When everyone else is panicking to restore normal, the Sigma is already analyzing the new terrain. He's mapping where others can't see, moving through uncertainty with surgical awareness. Because he understands that crisis doesn't destroy character, it reveals it. He's not driven by naive optimism or blind faith. He's driven by clarity, by the understanding that destruction and creation are two faces of the same cycle. One must burn for the other to begin. So while the herd cries out for things to return to what they were, the Sigma has already accepted that the old world is gone. And he's busy building within the new one. That's why he rarely breaks. He doesn't resist change, he flows with it. He doesn't fight the storm, he studies its rhythm and rides it to shore. To him, collapse is never chaos. It's simply nature removing the weak, making space for the adaptable. And in that space, the Sigma thrives. Because while everyone else scrambles to rebuild what was, he's already constructing what's next. Number 3. They build invisible safety nets. Most men parade their security like trophies. They showcase their wealth, their connections, their titles, mistaking visibility for strength. But visibility is a double-edged sword. The louder you are about your safety, the more vulnerable you become when the world starts to crack. The Sigma male knows this instinctively. He never puts his survival on display. His safety nets are invisible, built in silence, fortified with intention, and hidden where no one even knows to look. While the average man flaunts his status, the Sigma invests in something that can't be taken from him: skills. He knows the value of self-reliance. Money can evaporate, systems can collapse, but knowledge, that's immune to inflation and theft. He sharpens himself quietly. One day he's learning a trade. The next, he's studying human behavior, dissecting psychology, or mastering a survival skill few would even consider. It's not for applause. It's for autonomy. Because when the world burns, it's not possessions that save you, it's adaptability. And the Sigma never puts all his trust in a single pillar. He builds alliances, too, but they're just as silent as his skills. He doesn't collect acquaintances for validation. He cultivates a few rare, high-value bonds built on loyalty, competence, and clarity. No empty promises. No shallow networking. These connections don't shine in the light, they protect him in the dark. Then there are the resources. Not the kind people brag about online, but the quiet reserves that no one ever sees. Backup plans, fallback options, escape routes, and hidden assets that exist purely for function, not display. When the system breaks, when the banks fail, the networks vanish, and the so-called powerful are exposed, the Sigma moves through the chaos untouched. His safety net was never meant to impress anyone. It was meant to protect him. And here's the genius in it. Because no one knows where his strength lies, no one can sabotage it. He avoids envy, avoids attention, and avoids the emotional noise of comparison. By the time the herd realizes how prepared he truly was, he's already miles ahead, steady, unbothered, and unreachable. That's the Sigma's quiet brilliance. He doesn't need to appear powerful. He simply is, because his foundation isn't built in the open where storms can reach it. It's buried deep, beneath the noise, where no one can touch it but him. Number 4. They treat stability as an illusion. Most men live like the ground beneath them will never shift. They convince themselves that stability is permanent, that their jobs will always pay, their governments will always function, and their relationships will always last if they just follow the rules. It's comforting, yes, but it's a dangerous delusion. Because one crack in the system, one unexpected collapse, and their entire world disintegrates. Not because reality betrayed them, but because they built their identity on a fantasy. The Sigma male doesn't fall for that illusion. He understands that stability is never real, it's just a temporary balance, a pause between storms. He doesn't depend on it. He observes it. He enjoys it, but never trusts it. That's why when the floor caves in, he doesn't freeze like the rest. He simply adjusts his footing and keeps moving. He's been expecting the fall all along. To him, every system, economic, social, emotional, has an expiration date. Empires fall, currencies fail, people change. The Sigma accepts this truth with quiet detachment. It doesn't make him cynical. It makes him free. Because when you stop worshipping stability, you stop fearing its loss. That mindset gives the Sigma an incredible calm. He doesn't waste energy clinging to what's crumbling. He channels that energy into adaptation. While others scream, "This can't be happening," he's already saying, "I knew it would, now let's move." This isn't paranoia. It's psychological preparation. He doesn't stockpile fear, he stockpiles flexibility. He builds his mind like water, able to take any shape, flow through any crack, and find a path even when everything else is blocked. That's why he never gets blindsided. He's already accepted that life is inherently unstable, that permanence is a myth, and that everything, even comfort, is fleeting. So when the system collapses, he doesn't lose himself. He simply transitions. To others, this emotional detachment might seem cold. But to the Sigma, it's the only way to stay sane in a world built on temporary things. While the herd cries over lost normalcy, the Sigma moves with quiet certainty. He never mistook stability for security, because real security was never outside him. It was always in his ability to adapt, to detach, and to walk forward even as the ground breaks beneath his feet. That's the paradox of the Sigma male. He looks calm in crisis not because he's lucky, but because he never believed the calm before it was real. Number 5. They're comfortable in uncomfortable conditions. Most people spend their lives chasing comfort, the right temperature, the right company, the right environment. They build routines that numb them just enough to feel safe, yet not alive. And when life pushes them outside that delicate balance, they crumble. But the Sigma male doesn't chase comfort. He chases control, not over the world, but over himself. He knows that true power isn't in avoiding discomfort, it's in operating through it. Where others panic, he breathes. Where others retreat, he observes. He doesn't waste energy wishing things were easier, he channels it into adapting faster. Discomfort to him isn't a threat. It's a mirror. It reflects what's still weak, what's still dependent, and what still holds emotional control over him. So he seeks it out. He walks toward the situations most people avoid, the silence, the solitude, the uncertainty, because he knows that growth lives there, hidden behind resistance. Psychologically, this gives him an edge few ever develop. While others are paralyzed by chaos, the Sigma moves calmly through it, because his nervous system has already learned to function under pressure. He's trained himself to stay centered even when nothing around him is. You can't threaten a man who's at peace with discomfort. You can't manipulate a man who's no longer afraid of loss. You can't control a man who's already learned to thrive in the dark. This is why people misread the Sigma's composure. They think it's arrogance, that he's detached or unemotional. But they don't understand that it's discipline, not apathy. He's simply accustomed to the terrain that others run from. He's lived in uncertainty so long that it no longer feels like chaos, it feels like home. And when you can feel at home in what breaks others, you become unstoppable. So while the herd looks for light and comfort before acting, the Sigma moves through the dark, guided by instinct, strategy, and unshakable calm. He's not fearless, he's familiar with fear. He's not emotionless, he's mastered emotion. And in a world that worships comfort but collapses under pressure, the Sigma rises quietly. Not because he's unbreakable, but because he's learned how to breathe where others suffocate. Number 6. They disappear to regenerate. In a world that glorifies constant presence, constant posting, constant proving, constant noise, the Sigma male does something that terrifies most people. He vanishes. Not out of weakness. Not out of retreat. But out of power. You see, the average man confuses motion with progress. He stays visible, afraid that silence will make him irrelevant. He clings to the crowd, terrified that absence means abandonment. But the Sigma understands a deeper law of nature. That everything powerful regenerates in solitude. The lion doesn't roar when it's healing. The storm doesn't announce itself while it gathers force. And the Sigma doesn't broadcast his evolution. He withdraws, quietly, intentionally, completely. Disappearing isn't escape for him, it's recalibration. It's how he sheds the layers of false identity that the world tries to glue to him. He goes off-grid to listen, not to others, but to the voice that most people drown out with noise, his own. In those silent phases, he's not idle. He's reorganizing, analyzing, reconstructing. He's refining his goals, cutting emotional clutter, and sharpening his edge. While others crave attention, he craves clarity. While others chase recognition, he chases renewal. That's why when he reemerges, he's unrecognizable. Not in appearance, but in energy. He returns stronger, quieter, and more precise, the kind of presence that doesn't announce itself but changes the temperature of the room. People wonder where he went. What they don't realize is, he never left. He was simply in a place most can't reach, within himself. Psychologically, this makes the Sigma one of the most balanced men alive. Because solitude, for him, isn't loneliness, it's maintenance. It's the place where he drains the world's noise and recharges his inner voltage. The herd fears isolation because they meet emptiness there. The Sigma seeks isolation because he meets truth there. He disappears not to escape the world, but to rebuild the strength required to walk back into it. Calm, grounded, and unshakable. So if you notice a Sigma fade from your life, don't mistake it for distance. It's discipline. He's not gone. He's regenerating. And when he returns, he won't be who he was. He'll be sharper, clearer, and far more dangerous than before. Number 7. They operate without applause. In a world addicted to validation, silence is rebellion. Everyone wants to be seen, every effort posted, every success announced, every move broadcasted for approval. But the Sigma male has no interest in applause. He operates in a frequency too quiet for the crowd to detect. He understands something most men never learn, that real power doesn't need an audience. It just is. The Sigma doesn't move for recognition. He moves for alignment. He acts from internal command, not external encouragement. He doesn't need to hear, "good job," to know he's on the right path. He knows because it feels right, deeply, silently, unquestionably. This is what separates him from the validation-driven masses. The herd can't move without approval. They hesitate until they're sure someone's watching. They post before they act, and brag before they've even built. But the Sigma's focus is surgical, private, intense, and uncorrupted by performance. He doesn't advertise his progress because he's not interested in being admired. He's interested in being effective. His results don't exist for praise, they exist for proof. And when those results finally surface, they do so like an earthquake, silent at first, then impossible to ignore. People call it mystery. But it's not mystery, it's discipline. He knows that the moment you start performing for validation, you give away control of your direction. And the Sigma never gives that power up. He would rather be underestimated than overexposed. He'd rather build in the shadows than be distracted by the spotlight. Because he knows, the louder you are about your success, the easier it is to lose it. So he keeps his victories quiet, his goals coded, and his failures private. Not out of fear, but out of strategy. The fewer people who understand his movements, the fewer who can interfere. Psychologically, this gives him an unshakable center. When you stop relying on applause, you stop being controlled by rejection. You stop performing and start becoming. The Sigma moves like a ghost, unseen, unbothered, and deeply focused. And when his work finally surfaces, it speaks so loudly that no words are required. That's why he never seeks validation. He knows the sound of applause fades. But the silence of self-mastery echoes forever. Number 8. They find strength in detachment. Attachment is the invisible chain that keeps most men enslaved. They cling to people, to outcomes, to identities that no longer serve them. They mistake possession for love, permanence for peace, and control for connection. But the Sigma male sees the trap for what it is. He understands that attachment is the birthplace of suffering. That the tighter you hold on to anything, the more power it has over you. So he lets go. Not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Because he knows, what you can't walk away from controls you. This is why his aura feels untouchable. It's not that he doesn't care, he simply refuses to let caring become captivity. He loves deeply, but never desperately. He invests, but never depends. He gives, but never loses himself in the giving. That balance, that ruthless equilibrium, is what makes him dangerous in a world ruled by emotional volatility. While others are pulled by the tides of fear, attachment, and ego, the Sigma stands anchored in detachment. To him, detachment isn't indifference. It's perspective. It's seeing everything, love, power, status, loss, without being owned by any of it. He can walk through chaos and remain calm because his peace doesn't live in the world, it lives in him. He's free not because he owns nothing, but because nothing owns him. This detachment sharpens his intuition. He sees manipulation instantly, because he's not blinded by desire. He spots emotional traps long before others step into them. He knows how to pause where most would react, and that pause, that stillness, is where his power hides. And when he loses something, or someone, he doesn't crumble. He simply bows to the law of impermanence. He doesn't chase what leaves or mourn what changes. He lets it go, understanding that everything that exits his life clears space for something truer to enter. That's the Sigma's secret. He doesn't need to detach from the world, he's simply mastered how to exist in it without clinging. He can love without losing clarity. He can succeed without becoming enslaved to success. He can walk alone without feeling incomplete. In detachment, he doesn't find emptiness. He finds freedom. And in that freedom, he becomes untouchable. Number 9. They observe more than they express. Most men rush to speak. They jump to react, to defend, to announce. They believe that being heard equals being powerful. But the Sigma male understands a far older truth. That power doesn't come from noise. It comes from knowledge. And knowledge belongs to the one who watches, not the one who performs. The Sigma is the quiet presence in every room, the one who says little, but notices everything. He studies micro-expressions, tone shifts, emotional tics. He sees the gap between what people say and what they really mean. He hears the insecurity behind the arrogance, the fear behind the anger, the longing behind the pride. While others rush to broadcast their thoughts, the Sigma gathers information. Information that becomes leverage, clarity, and undeniable strategic advantage. This is why people often underestimate him. They mistake his silence for passivity. They assume he's detached, uninterested, or unaware. They don't realize he's mapping the psychological terrain in real time. And by the time they figure it out, he already understands them better than they understand themselves. The Sigma rarely reveals what he knows. He doesn't correct people when they lie. He doesn't expose their flaws, even when he could. He simply stores the knowledge. Quietly, precisely, and permanently. Because he understands something profound. The man who speaks least controls the direction of the conversation. And the man who controls the conversation controls the room. His silence creates space for others to expose themselves. Their insecurities spill out. Their motives rise to the surface. Their intentions unravel without him lifting a finger. Psychologically, this makes the Sigma one of the hardest men to deceive. You can't trick someone who analyzes before reacting. You can't manipulate someone who studies your patterns before revealing his own. You can't outplay someone who's quietly playing 3 moves ahead. This is why, in crisis or conflict, the Sigma always seems uncannily prepared. He's not lucky, he's observant. He's been reading the signs the whole time. While others speak to be understood, the Sigma watches to understand. And in that understanding lies his real dominance. Because the man who observes the world without revealing his own strategy is the one no one can predict. And therefore, no one can control. His silence is not emptiness. It's analysis. It's strategy. It's power. And it's one of the reasons the Sigma male moves through life like a ghost the world can see, but never truly grasp. Number 10. They master solitude instead of escaping it. For most men, solitude feels like punishment. They run from it, drowning it in noise, distraction, and constant social validation. They fear what silence will reveal about them. Because in solitude, there's no audience to impress, no mirror to hide behind. Only the raw, unfiltered truth of who they really are. But the Sigma male doesn't fear that truth. He faces it, and then he builds from it. Solitude isn't his escape. It's his laboratory, the sacred space where he dissects his own mind, confronts his shadows, and strengthens his core. While others use company to forget themselves, the Sigma uses isolation to find himself. He knows that until a man can sit alone without distraction or fear, he'll always be a prisoner, to the opinions of others, to the need for validation, to the emptiness he's trying to fill. That's why the Sigma's silence feels so powerful. It's not the silence of loneliness. It's the silence of alignment. He doesn't seek the world's energy, he generates his own. In solitude, he studies everything, his patterns, his impulses, his triggers. He doesn't run from discomfort, he interrogates it. He sits with his pain long enough to understand its language. Because he knows pain, when translated, becomes wisdom. This is why the Sigma emerges from solitude stronger, calmer, and more precise than before. He's not wasting that time, he's evolving in it. Each period of isolation becomes a private transformation, invisible to the outside world but undeniable when he returns. People often wonder how he keeps his composure under pressure. How he reads people so easily. How he moves with such quiet certainty. It's simple. He spent more hours in conversation with himself than most people spend scrolling through noise. Psychologically, solitude is his forge. It burns away weakness, dependency, and emotional chaos. It leaves behind only what's essential: clarity, control, and unshakable inner peace. The Sigma doesn't just tolerate being alone. He needs it, the way a warrior needs his weapon. The way fire needs oxygen to stay alive. Because when he returns to the world, he doesn't come back seeking connection. He comes back radiating it. A man whole within himself. Unmoved by absence, untouched by chaos. That's the paradox of the Sigma male. He looks alone. But he's never lonely. Because the one person he truly needed to know, he met in the silence. Number 11. They abandon ego for function. Ego is the trap most men fall into. It disguises weakness as strength, pride as power. It binds them to image, status, and perception. So that the moment the world challenges their identity, they crumble. Alphas fall when their crown slips. Influencers falter when attention fades. Executives collapse when authority disappears. The Sigma male never builds himself on appearances. He doesn't require admiration to act. He abandons ego the instant it becomes a liability. And in doing so, he becomes unstoppable. He will lead when he must. He will follow when it serves the mission. He will step into roles others consider beneath them. Without hesitation, without shame, without loss of dignity. Because he understands a deeper principle. Survival, progress, and power are not defined by pride, they are defined by action. To the ego-bound, this looks like weakness. To the world obsessed with image, it looks like submission. But to the Sigma, it's freedom. When crisis strikes, the ego-bound hesitate. They cling to titles, they protect appearances, they defend illusions. The Sigma moves, unobstructed by vanity or fear of judgment. He scales down, steps aside, and pivots. All while others are trapped fighting battles that no longer matter. Psychologically, this gives him a decisive edge. He can act faster, think clearer, and adapt smoother than anyone tied to public perception. While others are defending their pride, he's building his next move. It's not humility. It's precision. It's discipline. It's the quiet understanding that in a collapsing world, flexibility beats stubbornness every time. By abandoning ego, the Sigma transforms limitation into leverage. He turns restraint into freedom. He navigates chaos like a chess master, willing to sacrifice image for influence, willing to let pride die so survival and strategy can thrive. That's why the Sigma doesn't just endure crisis. He leverages it. He doesn't protect a throne. He expands his ground. And in a world where ego-bound men are blinded by pride, he moves with clarity no one else can touch. The Sigma's power is silent. It doesn't scream, it doesn't need applause. And it doesn't depend on recognition. It exists because he chose function over ego. And in that choice, he becomes nearly unstoppable. Number 12. They anticipate collapse as part of design. Most people live as if the structures around them are eternal. As if governments, corporations, and cultural norms are permanent fixtures. They build their lives on illusions of stability. Only to be blindsided when the floor gives way. The Sigma male sees the world differently. To him, collapse isn't an accident. It's inevitable. It's part of the natural order. Every empire crumbles, every trend fades, every system fractures. And he plans for it. This foresight doesn't make him paranoid. It makes him strategic. Detached. Prepared. While others panic at disruption, the Sigma already understands the rhythm. He anticipates the decay long before it arrives. He doesn't just survive instability, he positions himself to benefit from it. He keeps one foot in the system and one foot outside it. He leverages opportunities without being trapped by them. He enjoys resources, networks, and trends without tying his identity to them. He moves lightly, because he knows nothing lasts forever. And when it falls apart, he's already 3 steps ahead. Psychologically, this gives him freedom most men cannot imagine. Where the masses are paralyzed by surprise, he's calm. Where others mourn loss, he sees clarity. Where fear spreads like wildfire, he navigates with surgical precision. Collapse doesn't destabilize him because it's always been part of his map. The herd panics, screaming, "How could this happen?" The Sigma's only thought is, right on time. He doesn't waste energy grieving what was never permanent. He doesn't cling to false security. He simply adapts, evolves, and positions himself where others cannot follow. When the dust settles, most men are left with shattered illusions, broken routines, and wasted time. The Sigma male emerges intact. Not because he is invincible, but because he built his life on truths the world refuses to see. Stability is temporary. Ego is a liability. Dependence is weakness. Comfort is an illusion. He carries no fragile identity. He thrives in solitude. He prunes dead weight without hesitation. He turns the desperation of others into leverage. He slips through collapsing systems like a ghost. Crisis, for the Sigma, is not punishment. It's confirmation, a proof that his way of seeing the world, of preparing quietly, of mastering himself, was right all along. And when the smoke clears, he doesn't just survive. He recalibrates. He rebuilds. He rises stronger, sharper, and more untouchable than ever. Because for the Sigma male, the world doesn't end in collapse. It begins again. And he is always ready to walk forward first. When the dust settles, the world is left in fragments. Most men are broken, trapped by illusions, clinging to what no longer exists. The Sigma male is different. He carries no fragile identity. He thrives in solitude. He prunes dead weight with precision. He turns the desperation of others into opportunity. He walks through chaos like a ghost, untouched, unshaken, unstoppable. Crisis doesn't destabilize him. It validates him. Every collapse confirms the truths he's lived by. That comfort is fleeting, ego is heavy, dependence is weakness, and adaptability is power. While the world screams, the Sigma moves silently. While others panic, he recalibrates. While the herd loses itself in fear, he rises, stronger, wiser, untouchable. Because the Sigma male knows the uncomfortable truth. Survival is not about dominance. It's about clarity. It's about freedom. And it's about being ready when the world finally burns. And still walking forward, unshaken, ahead of everyone else. If this video gave you something to hold into, I'd be happy to have you join our community by subscribing. Don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments. And if there's anyone you think needs to hear it, share it with them. Thank you for watching.